I am back in Minneapolis right now, which has been fun. As I've mentioned before, Caitlin and I are working on a rental house in Washington, and so a lot of construction projects and things like that. Earlier in the month, we actually back in Minnesota, and we moved Caitlin's 94-year-old grandmother from New York City. She's been there for 94 years to Minneapolis, so she's a little bit closer to us as well. So. Yeah, that's been a lot sort of happening with that. And then Caitlin's back working on the project. So I'm a single dad for a few days or for a few weeks here. But training is going great. It's fun actually just be back. It actually seems like that's easier than doing the construction side of things. So it's kind of back into a regular routine and been enjoying that, trying to be a little bit creative with childcare and connecting with different friends. And I think it's this time of year, I really focus on, a few really key sessions. So the way that I like to break it out is I say, okay, there's 4 days in the week. 1 week, I'm going to take 3 days, and I'm going to be really focused for those 3 days. And the next week is those 4 days. So every other day, I have a particularly focused day, and trying to get in 2 interval sessions and at least 1 longer ski. So that part's been fun. It's still focused, as I mentioned before, on really being honed in on my zones. So I accept the fact that I'm not able to train as much as I used to, or as much as some of my friends and competitors. So I am just trying to be really diligent and really smart with the training that I am doing. So what that means is making sure that I'm not caught up in just trying to go somebody else's pace or to race in my intervals, but to really focus on, okay, what am I trying to achieve in this session? And what is my effort goal? And can I be as dialed as possible with that? And I find that to be actually really fun. So I like doing intervals in loops so I can see if okay, can I run the exact same time that I did my first lap, my 20th lap? So those are kind of some fun things. So want to answer some of the questions here in the chat box side of things. So when calculating total training time, is there a conversion done that is associated with intensity? In other words, is an easy hike or a 3 hours get counted as 3 hours compared to a hard run or strength or ski? So that's something that I really like that CXC Academy through Training Peaks does. It applies a load to each workout. Your body doesn't know what your body responds and adapts to stress, and it doesn't necessarily differentiate whether that stress has come from a 3-hour workout or some hard intervals or maybe moving your grandmother across the country. So there's all those different factors. So I think you have to sort of decide what is the load on a given day, because I guess objectively sometimes I feel like a 3-hour session at an easy pace is about the same load as a hour and a half, or an interval session of 40 minutes of on time that takes an hour and a half. That being said, those workouts have very specific different purposes, so they're not the same thing. So it gets a little trickier. Does strength training in gym count as an hour? How does that work for folks being 1,000 hours a year? I think the key thing is that we're logging hours and we're trying to keep a training log. A training log is really for yourself to be able to compare from prior years or from different periods. So my favorite thing about a training log is to have a really strong performance or a period of time that I feel really good, and to go back and say, hey, what helped me and what worked really well, or vice versa. If I have a poor performance, I'll go back and I'll look at that training log and I'll say, hey, what did I do? And did that make things not work out so well for me? So I think it all depends on what you want to do. That training log is really for yourself. That being said, I know for myself, most strength sessions take me 2 hours sometimes in the gym. And I just had the habit of sort of recording them for about an hour. And sometimes that was okay, if I was not talking to anybody, not taking a ton of rest, I could bust through it in an hour, and then I'd slow down because I wanted to have a little bit more recovery or those types of things. I don't know that it really matters. It probably just needs to be more consistent, but I would guess that maybe what I was doing is similar to what folks on the World Cup would do, is that they sort of count the amount of work time. I do caution folks to not get too preoccupied with that. I know some folks would be like, all right, like my heart rate drops below 120, I'm going to stop my watch. And I don't know. I think remember what you're trying to do. I guess maybe the better thing would be try not to stop the race rather than stopping your watches. Question 2, I have some difficulty with arms cramping after longish sections of double pulling last year. Assuming that one does not have a double pull machine, are there any simple dry land exercise that can help with this muscle set? Pull-ups seem pretty good, but not exactly right. So when we're double pulling in a long race, we're having thousands or tens of thousands of repetitions there. So I think one of the best things to do is to double pull. So if you're going out on roller skis, to double pull. If you don't roller ski, bring poles with you so you have some upper body exercise when you're walking, and you can use both poles at the same time, or you can single pull and stride uphill. Question 3, I'm so confused, having learned the original skate techniques back in the day, then relearning the new skate hips and shoulders square to the direction of travel, I struggle with proper skate form. From my own experience, it seems that the new skate only works at high tempos or uphill when the glide phase is short. Otherwise, the old skate, toe, knee, nose, provides the flattest ski with the longest glide. I can't see how you can ride a flat ski for very long if your torso isn't aligned in the direction of ski travel. Yeah, there are sort of different ranges on that. I don't know if my Zoom is going to work here, I guess, on that. But this idea of like, okay, I'm shifting weight and I am square. This is sort of a more new age technique as opposed to shifting side to side. So just like I can stand on one foot here and balance and have my shoulders stay square, I can do the same thing. This is more of that old school with the twist. And so the thought is that because we don't necessarily need to have this twist, this is an extra motion in there. And I think that it can be done. That being said, we're taught different types of technique, and sometimes it changes. So try different things and challenge yourself to do both, and then you can decide which one you find to be more efficient. My favorite test is go out and do it for your intervals, and if you can do intervals with the newer technique and it's more efficient, then go that direction. It's always a little bit tricky because we can become efficient at not as good technique, but it's up to. I'm always cautious for someone to say, hey, this is the right way to do something. You have to find what works best for you and your body. Whether I'm doing over distance or short roller skis, I do not run, bike, paddle. I seem to notice my heart rate keeps climbing up to the upper 140s and lower intensity with just nose breathing and or exhaling through the mouth. My zone 2 is close to the number, but I know on some of the workouts that they're supposed to be zone 1, 130. Also to note, my max average that I see if I go somewhat hard is usually 172, 175. Also, I just got back into exercising overall back in March. So what does that mean? I am still building a base at this point. My heart is still getting stronger and more efficient, but will take time or a natural limitation for me. Will I be getting lower in heart rate the more I train over time? Do I just need to ski even slower? I definitely feel comfortable at my normal pace, not race pace for sure. So this is, I think, probably one of the most common things for folks is that proper level 1 training is really, really slow. I'm a relatively strong runner, like running in like a running race. And like I know the running gym that I go to, performance running gym, very few, or there aren't a lot of athletes that I can go on a run with because I run too slow. And yet I could probably beat them in a race. And so I think the key thing is especially for ski training, that we need to have a lot of time in those lower intensity zones. Runners tend to train faster because you're sort of limited by how many miles you can run, in the sense that your body breaks down and just says, hey, I can't keep running or I'm going to get injured. So even really top runners, the actual total volume they're doing compared to ski training or skiers is often much less. So I think that for this person, that they just need to spend more time in that zone 1, and it can be a really tricky thing to go really slow. I know I like going fast, and I had about a year or two right before the 2014 Olympics that I said I am really going to focus on my level one, and it meant actually doing a lot of my training by myself because I found that a lot of my friends or teammates were going faster than I felt like I needed to go for me. Um, so maybe that means making an adjustment, going on some faster wheels, or spending a little bit more time by yourself. But the key is it's yeah, as overachievers, cross country skiers tend to think of like, oh, I can go up to a heart rate of 130. So they do all their training at 129 to 130. And I think having a range in there is a really important thing. So, all right, those, I think I got all through all those different questions. Yeah. So fun to connect on some of those different things. As again, folks have questions and you're on here for our live chat, feel free to send those in to Irina and Matt and CXC Academy. And thanks, Matt, for lining us up on this next week or next couple weeks.